Welcome to the Exam Room Live, brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Hi, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll, and this is the healthiest half hour anywhere online today. Appreciate you joining us right here on Facebook and on YouTube. Coming up today, it is Throwback Thursday, and we're going to be dipping into our exam room archives and pulling out a conversation that I had with Mr. Engine 2, Rip Esselstyn. How he was able to go from elite athlete to firefighter to now saving thousands, if not millions of lives through his patented Engine 2 diet. We're going to be finding out when I speak with him in just a little bit. Also today, we're going to be speaking with social media star Brooke Palmer. You know her better on Instagram as Beets by Brooke. She's in a unique position to tell us how we can cut through the clutter and the conflicting messages all over social media about what is healthy and what is not when it comes to food and your health. She does it so well. You know her at Beets by Brooke. Well, she's here to share her secrets with us on the program today. But first, that Throwback Thursday conversation with Rip Esselstyn. You know, his life is like a Hollywood script. The athlete turned firefighter turned Engine 2 diet creator, and the man is still saving thousands and thousands of lives through the power of a plant-based diet. Let's learn how Rip Esselstyn became plant strong. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Man, what an honor it is to meet you. I feel like just because of my relationship with your food, I already know you.
Well, and what is that relationship with my food like?
It's very healthy. I will tell you that. I am a huge fan of your roasted red pepper hummus because it's really the only hummus that I found in the grocery store. No oil. It's just so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
There's not many hummuses out there, commercial hummuses that are oil free, and it's one of the things that sets the whole Engine 2 food line apart from almost any other food line that's out there. And we have a lot of other criteria too. But
we'll talk about that in just a second. But I want to get some background on you because you really are a fascinating guy. I pulled up your Wikipedia page, and I don't know if you've done that to fact check it, but everything that's on there is really fascinating. Your father is the famed surgeon Caldwell Esselstyn. So have you been plant-based your entire life, as much of an advocate as he's been?
Oh yeah. Well, so I didn't start eating this way until I was almost 23 and a half. So I graduated from the University of Texas at Austin, and my father, our family grew up eating, meat, dairy, BLTs, steaks, ribeyes, you name it. But that all changed when my father started his research at the Cleveland Clinic in 1984. And then because I was at the University of Texas at Austin and I was eating on the athletic training table, I really didn't have the ability to eat plant strong.
Right.
And so it wasn't until I graduated and then I immediately started eating this way. And so I've been eating this way now for 32 years, and my parents have been another almost 36 years.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and say you were in college probably more than 5-6 years ago. So maybe the nutritionist, when you were eating at the athlete's table, like they weren't exactly plugged into the benefits of a plant-based diet.
No, far from it. No, it was chicken fried steak. It was soft serve ice cream. It was bacon and eggs. Oh, no. It was
seriously?
Oh yeah. Seriously.
For athlete, take plant-based out of the equation, or plant strong, take that out of the equation.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that chicken fried steak and ice cream isn't really going to boost your performance on the field.
Well, you know what? Back in the 80s when I was at school, that was not part of the equation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But then after college, you turned to firefighting. That's an interesting career choice. Why firefighting?
Well, it wasn't immediately after college. Immediately after college, what I did is I started a 10-year career as a professional triathlete.
Right. There we go.
I was very comfortable in the athletic arena. I had the swimming background. I loved biking, and I was a decent runner. And so I did that for 10 years. And then at the age of 30, almost 4, I decided it was time for me to hang up the Speedo and the Nikes and the Schwinn bike. And that's when I became a firefighter.
There comes a time in every man's life where he must hang up the Speedo.
Yes.
I guess 34 is it. But what was the appeal of firefighting? I mean, that's such a unique profession. Most
Yeah.
people would say.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those things where I didn't, as a kid, I didn't dream of being a firefighter. And it wasn't until I started looking at what was my next move going to be after the sport of triathlon. And some of my age group friend triathletes were also firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, Rip, you would love this. It's like no two shifts are ever the same. We go out 10 to 15 times during a 24-hour shift. We're doing good deeds. It's like a slumber party, and you're just going out and helping people and saving lives. So I went on some ride outs just to kind of try it out.
Yeah.
And just fell in love with the culture, the work. And it took me almost 3 years to actually get into the fire department.
Really?
Yeah. I found out afterwards that it is more competitive to become an Austin firefighter than it is to get into Harvard. So when I first applied in 1995, there were 4,000 people applying for 12 spots.
In Austin?
Yes.
Well, is it just because the spots are so limited? Is that what it is?
It's a great job. Austin has a great reputation as having a great fire service. The pay there is great. They have an amazing retirement there. So it's just highly sought after.
Firefighting, I would assume, is a macho profession, correct? I mean, just kind of on its surface, you would think, you got to be a man's man to be a firefighter, right?
Very much so.
And I think that the average person, when you think of a macho man, you think about burgers and steaks and all of those, just kill it and grill it kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And yet it was at this point when you're working for the fire department that this genesis for the Engine 2 diet began. It seems so counterculture.
Yep.
How did all of that start?
No, you're exactly right. And that was kind of the beauty of the whole story. It's the irony of a bunch of Texas male firefighters in the land of beef,
right, that
decided to give it up and start eating, what I call plant strong. So a whole food plant-based diet. And it was really just a little bet to see who had the lowest cholesterol level that led to this discovery that one of my firefighting brothers, who I've been working with for 6 years, his cholesterol came back and it was 344. Whoa. We promptly found out that he had this horrendous family history of men and his father dying before the age of 51. And so he was spooked. He'd never seen his cholesterol over 300 before.
Yeah, it's big.
Right. And so that was the impetus. And the next thing we're all of a sudden we're getting press, we're getting media, and we're the plant strong firefighters at Station 2 on the C shift.
So did you call up your dad and you were like, hey Dad, one of my fellow firefighters, his cholesterol is 300 and change. Should we talk to him about this plant-based diet? Was he involved in this process, or were you just like, plant-based diet, let's go, man, right now?
Yeah, no, we huddled up around the kitchen table. And we just decided really right then, right there, that we would do something about it. And we started with just doing some plant strong lunches.
Right.
And then the lunches spread to dinners and then breakfast. And then I challenged this individual to do it for 28 days, not only at the firehouse, but also at home. And then he did that. And that's when his cholesterol dropped 148 points.
Nice.
Right. To 196. Pretty dramatic. And then whenever my father would come visit me, I would bring him by the firehouse and he'd meet the guys and he'd share some of his, really extraordinary research that he was doing at the Cleveland Clinic.
And the guys were open to this. I mean, these Texas firefighters who grew up with the barbecue and the beef and all of that stuff, like I guess they saw the results, maybe saw the light.
Well, they were open to it. I mean, keep in mind, it was some of these guys, it took 6 years, right?
Right.
And it took this bombshell of a high cholesterol,
right,
with JR to kind of ignite everybody. But they also had seen me eating this way. They realized that I was not a shrinking violet, that, I held some of the records at the fire department, and this is a fire department with 1,100, firefighters. And I held the record on the treadmill stress test and some physical agility tests. And I was also at the age of, in my late 30s and early 40s, I was still competing at a world-class level with triathlons, coming out of the water first on NBC. So they were like, okay, yeah.
Get that national exposure. Nice. Hey,
yeah.
So you didn't hang up the Speedos for good.
Well, no, not for good, but I hung it up as far as this is exclusively what I'm doing.
Right.
But you're right. As I continued to compete while I was a firefighter almost until 2006.
Wow.
And I joined the fire department in 1997.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so during this challenge, those 28 days, were you doing a lot of the cooking? Is that kind of how you came to the revelation that, hey, maybe I should start mass producing this food so a lot of people can benefit?
You know what? No, it's funny. One of the things that made it so easy was that between Derek and Scotty and JR and Josh, these guys were all cooks, right? And so, and they love getting creative in the kitchen. And so we would alternate who would buy, who would shop and buy for the dinner or the lunch or whatever. And then we would all pitch in and help when it came to chopping and prepping all the food. And then of course, cleaning up. But the meal time, it was a real special time for us to bond. And the fact that we all took turns cooking was made it that much easier.
When did you decide to leave firefighting and do Engine 2 full time?
Well, so that was in 2009. I wrote Engine 2. It came out in February of 2009. And then a couple months later, I got a very, very flattering invitation from Whole Food Market stores to come be a health eating partner with them and to develop this line of food products, to host medical immersion programs, and then also to be this health eating ambassador of sorts, going around spreading this message. And so that was, so really it was October 2009. So it's been almost 10 years.
Wow.
That I stepped away from firefighting. And I'd been a firefighter for 12 years.
You love it though? You love what you're doing now?
Oh yeah. I mean, now I'm just, I'm putting out different types of fires, right? And it's on a much grander scale, and it's every day it is, it's extraordinary. The emails that I get, how grateful I am that I am privileged enough to be able to help people in such a fundamental, basic way as, hey, what are you putting in your mouth? And know that if you can change what you put in your mouth, you can really, in many, many ways, control your health destiny. I mean, that's crazy.
You still get the itch though if you see the truck go by, sirens going, like, man, let me hop on there.
Well, I love stopping by firehouses and going in, smelling the smells, the sights, the sounds, the guys. It's such a culture, and it doesn't matter if you're in Denmark, Sweden, France, United States. The brotherhood, the sisterhood is tight.
You also, I want to go back to your athletic background for just a second. You also participated in the World Police and Fire Games, did you not?
I did. That was in 2001, I believe it was, September.
Did quite well, if I understand correctly.
No, I was fortunate enough that I won the gold medal there.
There you go.
In that one, and that was a lot of fun.
What all did that entail?
Well, it was a swim, it was a bike, and it was a run. It was a mile swim, it was a 25-mile bike, and then it was a 10K run.
All right. You're the ringer in that then, man. You were born to do that. Of course, man. You'd
be surprised. There were some very good triathletes from, so the thing that a lot of people don't understand is it's called the World Fire and Police Games.
Yeah.
And these are people from all over the world. There's 16,000 athletes that come and show up for these games. It's the largest sporting event in the world.
That's bigger than the Olympics.
Yeah, bigger than the Olympics. So, I don't know how many triathletes competed in the triathlon. It was probably, several hundred. But it was not a slam dunk for me by any means. I had to work very hard.
Well, congratulations. I hope that the gold medal is proudly displayed in your office or at your house or something. As a former swimmer, just curious, if Michael Phelps were to have eaten a plant-based diet, how many more gold medals do you think he would have won?
3.
3 more. He's calculated. Okay.
Yes. Three more. Yep. Michael's extraordinary. And when you're in your, early 20s, mid 20s, you can pretty much get away with just about anything.
Yeah.
But towards the end of his career, I think, there's no doubt in my mind that eating a whole food plant-based diet would have helped Michael, as it would have helped any athlete that's trying to get the most out of their body.
Sure.
Recover faster, perform better, be their leanest, meanest self.
Yeah.
And Michael had some real close races there.
He did. He did indeed.
Right. That, it's the difference between, that Big Mac or that 3-bean chili.
I want to real quick ask you, I picked up on something. There's a distinction. You say plant strong. I say plant-based, you say plant strong.
Yeah.
Talk to me about plant strong.
Well, I like plant strong. It's like a double entendre.
Okay.
Right? So people for a long time, especially in the firefighter culture, think that plants are weak food. They're not a very manly food. And so I'm just trying to put an end to that and saying, listen, let's eat plant strong. And when you're eating plants, they're probably the strongest foods that are out there. They're not weak foods. And we now know that just the reverse is the truth, meaning that the meat and the dairy and, the oils, these are truly the weak, insidiously destructive foods that permeate our culture. And what they have had is they have had some very, very strong marketing muscle behind them. Whereas the fruits, the vegetables, the whole grains, and the beans, they haven't, but they are truly the superheroes when it comes to food. So plant strong. You can eat plant strong, meaning whole food plant-based, and be your strongest, best self.
Such a cool story. That was one of our most popular episodes ever of the Exam Room podcast. So if you want to hear the full interview, you can head over to Apple Podcast or Spotify. Look for the Exam Room podcast by the Physicians Committee. Hit that subscribe button, scroll through the archives, and pull up Rip's full interview. All right, let's move on now. If you're watching this, there is a good chance that you've thumbed your way through Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And no doubt, when you've been on there, you've seen all kinds of messages about what's good for you and what's not. Eat this, not that. The kinds of messages that say if you eat 3 steaks a day and a dozen eggs, you're going to be A-okay. Don't worry about cholesterol. Well, is that true? Well, obviously, the science that we share on this show says nothing could be further from the truth. So how do you discern fact from fiction when you're online? Well, we are going to turn to Brooklyn Palmer. She is a social media star. You know her on Instagram as Beets by Brooke. She is a medical student down in Texas who is spreading the word of plant-based diets and the benefits that they bring to an entirely new generation. And tens of thousands of online followers to boot. So how can you cut through that clutter, discern what is true, what is not? She's here to share her secrets with us in this healthy message on the Exam Room. Going to tackle something that we haven't yet had the opportunity to do on the Exam Room Live, and that is to talk about social media and navigating it. As somebody who wants to take charge of your health, we're seeing messages from all over the place. We get bombarded with it. But how do you decipher what's good from what's bad? How do you find what's right for you? What are the pros and the cons? To weigh that all out is an expert on this. She is herself a social media star and a friend of the show. With that, we welcome Brooklyn Palmer back to the Exam Room Live. Brooklyn, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
At Beets by Brooke, by the way, we should just give you a plug right off the top since we're talking about social media. That's BEETS, like the food, Beets by Brooke on Instagram. Phenomenal account. Give it a follow. You know this as well as anybody. When you log on to your phone and you start scrolling through Instagram, you start flipping through Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever the case may be, you're seeing all kinds of craziness out there. How do you know what's good, what's bad? How do you find what's right for you?
I think this is an extremely valuable topic because at the end of the day, a lot of people are getting their information from social media, whether or not they're extremely conscious of it. And I believe that it is really not talked about enough, but we really need to understand that in order to get this advice, get these tips that so many people are sharing, and a lot of it is so valuable, but we need to make sure that we're applying it in a way that's going to be sustainable for our life. I really like to use the word sustainable. A lot of people use it in terms of an eco-friendly way, which is completely relevant, but also what's going to be sustainable for you, your financial situation, your stress situation. The person on the other side of your phone or tablet, whatever you're using to look at social media, very likely has an extremely different life than you. One of the things I love to talk about is all the things that influence eating behaviors. And because it is so complex, because the list is endless, it's really important to know that there's no way that the health guru or, culinary master influencer that you're following is in the same situation as you. And so that's something I really like to bring to light, because sometimes it's easy to look at what someone's eating in a day or their meal prep and almost feeling kind of bad if you can't apply it. And I'm here to tell you that should not be the case, because a lot of these things are curated. Having worked in social media during my gap year before medical school and being a quote unquote influencer, content creator, whatever you want to say, I've been able to kind of see all the things at play. And, while a lot of people, I think, want to be authentic, in order to really create some of these beautiful visuals or posts, sometimes you kind of have to tweak the realness of it. And sometimes that's not always apparent to the person consuming it, and they think that everything is just completely real, which is just objectively not the case. And I think anyone who is involved in social media would tell you that.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm glad that we're talking about this too, because we're at a time when the vegan trend is absolutely exploding. A lot of people are jumping on board the plant-based bandwagon, and then they're just dipping their toes in there. So when you have all of these messages out there, especially if you're just getting going, it's hard to decipher, what is right for you. So let's talk about some of the pros and the cons out there. One of the things that I really like about social media personally is just this abundance of amazing ideas for recipes. And you can, I find, pretty easily find a recipe that is right for you.
Yeah, so I believe a lot of people now, like, I love my cookbooks, but I get a lot of my meal inspiration from social media, which is just phenomenal. There's so many different options. A lot of times there's videos on it, which I think, we're such visual beings as humans that it's extremely beneficial. I personally don't really like a lot of the quote unquote like crazy ingredients that might be hard to find. I definitely recognize the health benefits of them. And I think early in my vegan career, in my vegan lifestyle that I adapted for myself, I really was very gung ho, like, I'm going to do what everyone else is doing. I'm going to, get sea moss or, spirulina, and really eat that every single day, like all my favorite influencers are doing. And it really took me a second to take a couple of steps back and be like, okay, I'm a student. I don't have a job. I don't have a lot of time. Let me figure out what are some accounts that really speak to me and my situation. And I think that's why it's really valuable to just explore different ones. There might be a social media account that has 300,000 followers and have phenomenal photos, but maybe if the meals aren't, similar culture that you're familiar with, or maybe they're just using ingredients that are hard for you to access, really make sure that you're following accounts if you're, looking for food advice that apply to your situation, because I think you're going to be able to actually execute them more in a realistic way, and then you're going to end up, just having a much more positive experience from that. And you bring up a really good thing about the vegan boom. I think it's really valuable to understand that a lot of vegan accounts don't show the process to becoming vegan or plant-based or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of times we're seeing the end result. And I think that for some people, which, as you say, dipping their toes in, it might be a bit intimidating, like, oh, this person is 100% plant-based, 100% vegan. And if you're having some barriers, that might kind of translate as you feeling like you're failing. But at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to show the end result versus the often, up and down path that a lot of people take to become vegan or plant-based, because it really is, an experience that takes a while to get used to. And so I think that's really important for people to remember. That might not always be, the most popular post on Instagram.
Yeah, and you know what? That brings up a good point. I think by and large, no matter what on social media, people tend to post the best pictures that paint them in the best light, right? but they're not going to show that dark side and all of the hard work that it took to get to that best photo or that great meal that they're having now or that six-pack abs. And so it's kind of like when I talk about starting out to lose weight, people are like, man, I got to lose 200 pounds. Like, why even start? That finish line is way down there. And so if you see this picture that you perceive to be perfect, you're like, that's so unattainable. Why even try? That it's kind of the same thing. And people do need to get into that mentality. Like, it is a process to get there. So it's important to definitely keep that in mind and not necessarily be envious of where that person is, because God knows work went into it, but that doesn't mean that you can't put in the work yourself.
That brings up a really good point. And while there is a trend of people showing a lot more realistic posts, which I absolutely love, at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to grow an account if you're doing the thing that everyone's used to. And that's why I really urge people to be mindful of, how is my feed making me feel? You know, you can love someone's account, but maybe they're only doing before and after photos that makes you feel a certain type of way. It doesn't make you a bad person to unfollow someone. And I think that people need to remember that. You know, we are really kind of understanding the mental health impact of social media. And I think it's really important to remind people who consume social media content that you have a lot of power in what your feed looks like. I know for me personally, there's an option to mute, if you didn't know that, on Instagram, so you can still follow people you love, but maybe they're showing something that just makes you feel a certain type of way, and maybe you can go back to that and reevaluate later. And I think that kind of comes into some of the cons of social media, is that, as you said, a lot of it is unrealistic, or a lot of it really does show point A and point Z when we have the entire alphabet in between. And that alphabet might not get as many likes, but it's real and it's reality. And so it's just important to have those reminders for yourself and for whoever your audience is or whoever you're following, to just remind people of that, because it's really easy to lose sight of, especially when people are scrolling on social media multiple hours a week.
Yeah, man. Show some love for letters B through Y. Don't forget them. They're um so let's talk about those mixed messages again, because you were just talking about finding the message that's right for you, which means that social media, one of the great things is it can be very niche. You can find exactly who it is that you are on there, right? But you're also going to be sifting through a whole lot of stuff that is so not you and so far off base that you go from promoting a healthy culture to a really unhealthy culture. So you and I tend to follow accounts that are going to glorify eating a healthy diet, but there are just as many accounts out there that glorify eating unhealthy diets. And I'm not just talking about, processed meat isn't as bad as they say. I'm talking about the people who are like, I just, stack 5 Big Macs on top of each other and a fish fillet sandwich and put the fries in the middle and had another side of fries on top of that with a large milkshake. And they glorify that kind of eating, and that is ultra unhealthy. And so, people look at that too, and just as they say, man, I want to be like this person who's got this delicious plant-based meal over there, it's like, yo, I want to be like Sam, who just crushed 10,000 calories in one sandwich. That too can be a dangerous message.
I completely agree. And it can be kind of concerning. And I think a lot of that kind of reflects, people kind of pushing back on some of these intense, whether that's a lot of times unhealthy weight in terms of, lose X in X amount of days, and just really unattainable things. And I think the more that we have this quote unquote diet culture pushing some of these concepts, it's going to push people to glorify, oh, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm going to eat those 10,000 calories in a sandwich. And so I think it's important to really find a good balance, and also understand that a lot of people are getting paid to say some of these things. Whatever unhealthy health trends are going on, whether that is some kind of food item or, keto, which I acknowledge that keto can be done a lot of different ways, but I also acknowledge there's extremely processed keto products that companies are willing to spend a lot of money to get influencers to talk about. And so I really encourage consumers of social media to see a content and just kind of ask, what is the goal of this? If they're giving information about a product, are they getting paid for it? It doesn't mean that it's not accurate, but it might mean that you need to take a couple steps to make sure that you are receiving the most accurate and applicable information for yourself. And so I think social media is tricky because it reflects a lot about society, both good and bad. And so that's why I always just tell people to be mindful, whether that's mental health, whether that's physical health. Is your feed contributing beneficially to your health? And sure, social media can be a fun kind of mindless thing, but when you're consuming hours of it, I think it kind of begs the question, should it be completely mindless? Should it be, not prioritize health in general? I know some people, maybe they just want to look at cars, or I don't know. I know mine is completely, health and food, because that's just kind of what I'm interested in. But I think that the more mindful we can be of the content that we're consuming, honestly, the happier and healthier that we're going to come out being.
Yeah, and we're running out of time here, but I want to go back to what it was you were saying as far as marketing posts. And I kind of view Instagram and Facebook and things like that the same way that I look at studies, right? So you need to view that with the same level of scrutiny. Go with me here. You hear about a study that seems so out of left field that, all of a sudden we hear, cholesterol bad, red meat bad, processed meat horrible. And then there comes this study that's like, wait a minute. Red meat is not that bad. Processed meat is not that bad. Forget what the World Health Organization says. And then boom, that study blows up. Everybody runs wild with it. But what people did not do before they started running with it was look at who funded the study, who was conducting the research, right? What were the conflicts of interest? It's the same kind of thing there as it is with the marketing stuff that you see on social media. Almost identical, theoretically.
I agree. There's a lot of ulterior motives, and a lot of them are not to benefit the health of other people, unfortunately. A lot of it is just to push whatever agenda or product that a company or organization might have, just to boost for themselves and not necessarily to help other people. And it's really unfortunate. And a lot of times, some of these more fun, less healthy products are going to be the things that are shared, or they're going to have the most amount of money to pay the biggest influencers to reach the most amount of people. And it's really concerning to me. And that's why one of the things that really pushes me personally in social media, as someone who is being, trained in medicine, which you can, of course, still have credibility in other ways. But at the end of the day, I do believe that the scale is very much tipped towards companies that don't have the best interests of the community in mind. And I think it's extremely valuable for those who are extremely dedicated to the health and well-being of others to also have a voice in social media.
We got to leave it at that. But you are extremely dedicated to the health and wellness of others. And so for that, we are very grateful. A healthy account to follow that you will never regret, at Beets by Brooke on the gram. Brooklyn Palmer, thank you so very much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
I'll tell you, Brooklyn really practices what she preaches. And a matter of fact, she's going to be practicing, period, as soon as she gets out of medical school. She's going to be a fantastic physician. We should all be so lucky to have a doctor like Brooklyn. And I'll tell you what, the world, in fact, does have plant-based doctors and dietitians. And if you would like to make an appointment to visit with one, the fine folks over at the Barnard Medical Center would be more than happy to meet with you and help get you going on your healthier journey. You can pick up the phone and call them to schedule an appointment today at 202-527-7500, or you can do it online at barnardmedical.org. Telemedicine visits are, in fact, available, and insurance is accepted. You can find a full list of states where those services are available at barnardmedical.org when you schedule your appointment. All right, coming up on the program tomorrow, we are going to be having our week-ending blowout Q&A with Doctors Neil Barnard and Jim Loomis when we open up the doctor's mailbag in a gigantic way. We are going to be devoting the whole half hour to your questions and their answers. So if there's anything on your mind, you're wondering about your health, go ahead and post that in the comment section now, or you can tweet that to us using the hashtag ExamRoomLive. Send it over to @ChuckCarroll, WLC, or @PCRM with that hashtag ExamRoomLive, and we will get to as many of those questions with Doctors Barnard and Loomis as we possibly can on tomorrow's show. Also out today, by the way, a brand new episode of the Exam Room podcast. So if you want to go over there, check out Rip's interview, you can also pull down the latest episode, which dropped overnight. So hit that up, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever shows are available. Look for the Exam Room podcast by the Physicians Committee. Important distinction there. Hit that subscribe button and leave a 5-star rating, and you can help make the world a healthier place. That's all the time that we have for today's show on this Throwback Thursday edition of the Exam Room Live. I want to say thank you one more time to Mr. Rip Esselstyn, as well as Brooklyn, aka Beets by Brooke, on Instagram. Thank you guys so very much for joining us today. And I want to say thank you to you as well, my exam roomie. Thank you for joining us and helping to make the world a healthier place. Also to the crew behind the scenes that makes the magic happen here at the Exam Room Live. For everyone here at the Physicians Committee, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. And until then, stay safe, take a stand, and keep it plant-based.